Ever wonder why certain firearms manufacturers get nervous when specific topics come up? There's a rifle that's been flying under the radar for decades, hiding in plain sight at every gun counter in America. While everyone argues about AR-15s and debates magazine capacities, this unassuming wooden-stocked rifle has been quietly racking up a body count that would make a cartel hitman blush. The establishment doesn't want this conversation happening, but the truth has a way of surfacing, whether corporate lawyers like it or not. The Mini-14 represents everything wrong with how firearms get marketed versus how they actually perform in the real world. Sporting goods stores display it next to hunting rifles and target guns, complete with wholesome ranch imagery and all-American branding. Meanwhile, this exact same platform has been issued to military units, adopted by police departments, and chosen by some of history's most notorious killers. The disconnect isn't accidental. It's carefully orchestrated corporate theater designed to maximize profits while minimizing accountability. Corporate boardrooms love weapons that can serve dual purposes without triggering regulatory attention. The Mini-14 became the perfect solution to a growing problem in the firearms industry during the turbulent 60s and 70s. Anti-gun sentiment was building momentum. Military-style rifles were attracting unwanted political scrutiny, and manufacturers needed something that could deliver serious firepower without looking the part. Enter a rifle that borrowed its DNA directly from military battle rifles, while wrapped in civilian camouflage so effective it fooled legislators for generations. The engineering tells the real story that marketing departments work overtime to obscure. When seasoned AR-15 designer Jim Sullivan threw his expertise behind this project, the result wasn't some compromised sporting rifle. The short-stroke gas system, rotating bolt lockup, and self-cleaning operation were borrowed directly from proven military designs because reliability under stress was the primary objective. Everything about the mechanical foundation screams combat effectiveness, but the wooden furniture and traditional profile whisper hunting cabin respectability. What makes this deception particularly insidious is how Ruger deliberately chose components and features that would satisfy military requirements while maintaining civilian appearances. The gas system operates flawlessly with rapid-fire strings that would choke lesser designs. The bolt face and extractor were engineered to handle the kind of sustained abuse that destroys conventional hunting rifles. The receiver strength exceeds what any sporting application would ever demand. These weren't happy accidents or engineering overkill. They were deliberate design choices intended to create a weapon capable of serious work while looking incapable of it. Quality control during early production reveals just how cynical this entire enterprise became. Rifles shipped with barrels too thin to maintain accuracy under sustained fire. Yet nobody bothered warning customers about these limitations. The manual bolt release mechanism was clunky and unreliable, but rather than delaying production to fix it, Ruger let paying customers discover the problems firsthand. Sights were barely adequate for the hunting applications the rifle supposedly served. Yet nobody questioned why a sporting rifle needed such modest accuracy equipment. These weren't isolated manufacturing defects or unfortunate oversights. Internal documents would likely reveal that Ruger knew exactly what performance problems existed, but calculated that market penetration mattered more than customer satisfaction. Early adopters became unwitting beta testers for a platform that wouldn't reach its full potential for decades. The audacity of charging premium prices for what amounted to expensive prototypes demonstrates corporate priorities that put profits over performance. International markets exposed another layer of calculated deception that most American shooters never discovered. While domestic customers were buying standard 223 models, Ruger was simultaneously manufacturing alternative chamberings designed specifically to circumvent foreign import restrictions. The 222 Remington variant allowed the same basic rifle to enter countries where military calibers were prohibited, creating a shadow market that operated completely outside public awareness. This wasn't responsive manufacturing meeting legitimate sporting demand. This was systematic exploitation of legal technicalities to expand sales reach regardless of local political sensitivities. Countries trying to limit civilian access to military-capable weapons found themselves importing functionally identical rifles simply because the paperwork listed different cartridge specifications. Ruger profited from this regulatory arbitrage while maintaining complete deniability about the implications. Soviet-caliber variants revealed similar corporate opportunism disguised as customer service. When surplus 7.62 by 39 ammunition flooded American markets, Ruger rushed to capitalize with the Mini-30 model. But rather than properly supporting this caliber choice with appropriate engineering modifications, they delivered a rifle optimized for expensive American ammunition while marketing it to buyers planning to shoot cheap imported surplus. Predictable reliability problems followed, yet Ruger addressed these issues reluctantly and only after sustained customer complaints threatened sales. The pattern becomes clear when examining how government sales evolved parallel to civilian marketing, while telling sporting goods customers they were buying ranch rifles and hunting carbines. Ruger was simultaneously developing tactical variants for law enforcement and military contracts. Flash suppressors, bayonet lugs, and tactical furniture weren't aftermarket modifications. They were factory options available to authorized government buyers who understood what they were actually purchasing. Government procurement records tell a completely different story than civilian marketing materials ever suggested. Prison systems across multiple states issued Mini-14 to corrections officers. Island nations like Bermuda built their entire military small arms inventory around these rifles. Law enforcement agencies from rural sheriff departments to federal security contractors adopted them for serious defensive applications. None of these professional users were confused about what they were buying. They wanted proven combat effectiveness in a politically acceptable package. The AC-556 Select Fire variant destroys any remaining pretense about sporting intentions. Full auto capability, burst fire modes, and military furniture options proved that Ruger always intended this platform for serious tactical applications. The semi-automatic civilian version wasn't a design philosophy. It was a legal compliance minimum imposed by federal regulations. Given the choice, Ruger would have sold machine guns to anyone with the paperwork and cash to complete the transaction. High-profile violent incidents exposed the gap between marketing fiction and battlefield reality in ways that corporate damage control couldn't contain. When federal agents armed with revolvers and shotguns got outgunned during the Miami shootout, the Mini-14's combat effectiveness became impossible to ignore. Two suspects with a single rifle held off multiple FBI agents in a sustained firefight that changed law enforcement training forever. The weapon performed exactly as designed under extreme stress, while the supposed professionals were left scrambling with inadequate equipment. Montreal's Polytechnique massacre demonstrated the rifle's capabilities on an international stage that Ruger couldn't control through domestic media management. 14 victims died because a legally obtained sporting rifle delivered military-grade lethality in civilian hands. The attack lasted long enough to prove the weapon's reliability under sustained use, while law enforcement struggled to respond effectively. Canadian authorities banned the rifle outright afterward, but American sales continued without any acknowledgement from Ruger that their product had enabled mass murder. Norway's Utoya Island attack proved that geographic distance couldn't insulate Ruger from the consequences of their design choices. 77 people died when Anders Breivik demonstrated the Mini-14's effectiveness during an extended killing spree that overwhelmed law enforcement response capabilities. The rifle functioned flawlessly throughout the attack, while police struggled to reach the scene and neutralize the threat. European media coverage couldn't be managed like domestic incidents, yet Ruger maintained complete silence about their product's role in the carnage. Recent Nova Scotia events brought the violence back to North America with 22 fatalities during a 13-hour rampage that showcased everything wrong with current firearms regulation. A smuggled Mini-14 outperformed law enforcement response capabilities, while demonstrating that border controls couldn't contain the international market for these weapons. Canadian authorities renewed calls for additional restrictions, but American manufacturers continued operating as if these tragedies occurred in alternate dimensions that didn't affect their business calculations. Corporate responses to these incidents reveal a calculated strategy of silence designed to avoid legal liability while maintaining plausible deniability. No press statements acknowledge the weapon's role in mass casualties. No design modifications address features that enable sustained violence. No cooperation with authorities investigating how sporting rifles become implements of mass destruction. The strategy appears to be waiting for public attention to move elsewhere while continuing business as usual. Engineering improvements implemented during this same period expose the cynical calculation behind these corporate silences. Accuracy problems that plagued early production were quietly resolved through incremental modifications that Ruger never publicly acknowledged. Heavier barrels appeared without explanation. Gas port modifications improved reliability without announcement. Manufacturing tolerances tightened without admission that previous standards were inadequate. The timeline of these stealth improvements coincides suspiciously with high-profile violent incidents that drew unwanted attention to the platform's capabilities, rather than addressing the fundamental issue of marketing military-capable weapons as sporting equipment. Ruger focused on technical refinements that enhanced performance while maintaining the same problematic market positioning. Better accuracy made the rifle more dangerous in criminal hands, while improved reliability reduced the chances of mechanical failures during violent encounters. Modern market persistence proves the effectiveness of this long-term deception campaign. Despite superior alternatives available at lower prices, the Mini-14 continues attracting buyers who believe they're purchasing something fundamentally different from an assault rifle. The wooden stock and traditional appearance provide psychological cover for owning serious firepower without triggering social or political scrutiny. Suburban gun owners who would never consider an AR-15 happily display Mini-14s in their collections. This successful image management represents perhaps the most effective corporate deception in firearms industry history. A weapon system designed for military effectiveness has been marketed as sporting equipment for over 50 years, while maintaining both functions simultaneously. Government contracts and civilian sales operate in parallel markets that never acknowledge their fundamental similarity. The cognitive dissonance required to sustain this dual identity has produced unprecedented profits while avoiding meaningful accountability. Political acceptability rather than technical superiority explains the Mini-14's continued relevance in today's market. Gun owners seeking serious capability without social complications find exactly what they need in a package that looks harmless enough to avoid regulatory attention. The disconnect between appearance and capability serves everyone's interests, except public safety advocates who understand what's actually being sold. The broader implications extend far beyond any single rifle model or manufacturer. When military-capable weapons can be successfully marketed as sporting equipment for generations without regulatory intervention, the entire framework for controlling dangerous weapons becomes meaningless. Appearance matters more than function. Marketing narratives override technical reality, and corporate profits take precedence over public safety considerations. This investigation barely scratches the surface of what firearms manufacturers don't want the public understanding about their business practices. Subscribe for more exposés that reveal how the gun industry really operates behind the patriotic marketing and sporting rhetoric.